of crying the forfeits. This ceremony usually closes the festal amusements of a Christmas evening. Therefore I was assured it would be an unpardonable omission to pass it over, which, however, I was well disposed to do, because it cannot be supposed that a staid partisan of a silver-crested Dian can approve or recommend those abundant kissing matches to which the redeeming such pledges usually gives rise. While I was deliberating upon the expediency of altogether suppressing this portion of Christmas revelry, a young American friend, Mrs. Bundling, happened to pay me a visit. Having signified to her the scruples I felt on the occasion, she offered to take upon her the execution of all that related to this department, if I would consent to appoint her to the office with plenipotentiary power. I assented, because she vowed the credit of the publication would be commisted if it was put forth in such a state of imperfection, saying it would look like a bird without feathers, a sow with one ear, a lobster without claws, a hussar without moustaches, etc., etc. She was so I cannot imagine why you should refuse to lend your countenance to a little inoffensive kissing. It well becomes, indeed, a parcel of frumps to be so squeamish about a privilege by which they are themselves the greatest gainers, since, but for these Christmas games of forfeits, many an old maid would leave the world with cheeks unsmacked by the two lips of mortal man. To hear her talk, one would suppose one of these smacks was worth a capital prize in the lottery. But I believe she would look blank enough if she never got any kisses but such as come by the wheel of fortune. Should she be considered by some of my grave sisterhood to have shewn herself rather a wholesale dealer in the cooing line, I must beg to apprise them that she is, at the present writing hereof, a fine bouncing animated bride of 18, who hath not yet accomplished the first quarter of her honeymoon. Her education was utterly neglected. Never was there seen a more perfect child of nature. But, as a compensation for uncultivated faculties, she possesses intuitive judgment, with that quickness of perception which is peculiar to genius. In short, she is gifted with the art of pleasing in a sovereign degree, being handsome, witty, humorous, and eloquent, without herself suspecting anything about the matter. We shall now proceed to the forfeits, describing them under their different heads. Kiss the nun. The gentleman on whom this penance is imposed is allowed to choose the lady who is to personate the nun. She, in turn, is to nominate her person, who is to play the part of Grace. The penitent may be ordered to kiss the nun's cheek, or her hand only, according to the discretion of the crier. He is to perform the task assigned him in the following way. 2 chairs are placed in the middle of the room, in one of which the nun is seated. By her side sits the person chosen to play the part of Great, who, opening her fingers wide, holds her hand on the nun's cheek, so as to represent the bars of a convent grate. Through these openings the penitent is to try and kiss the nun's cheek or hand, according to the order given. He begins by exclaiming, "Alas, these bars, these cruel, cruel bars!" The nun then replies, "They're not so narrow, but you may bestow on me a kiss, one parting kiss." At the word kiss, the penitent must try to kiss the nun, while the lady who performs Great endeavors to baffle him by closing her fingers. If he kisses the bars of the grate, the lady who plays Great cries, "Take this for your bad management," pulling his ear. "How dare you waste your kisses on cold iron?" His attempts must be renewed and continued until he succeeds by his own quickness, or from the compassion of the Great, who thinks he has been sufficiently tantalized, and therefore leaves her fingers open intentionally. The nun at each trial is to cry, "One parting kiss." Kiss if you can. The penitent having a lady assigned whom he is to kiss, she is to kneel in the middle of the room. He is to kneel also, his back being turned to the lady's back. At the words, "Make ready," the lady is to look over her left shoulder, and the gentleman's head is at the same instant to be turned over his right shoulder. At the word "present," he must approach his lips to her cheek as much as possible. At the word "fire," he must try to kiss her. She must endeavor, however, to baffle his attempt, either by stooping down or suddenly springing up. If he is nimble, he will secure her by passing one arm round her waist, and holding her head with his other hand. If he fails, he must cry, "I beg your pardon for being so awkward, but I hope to behave better another time." If she escapes, she must scoffingly cry, "A miss is as good as a mile." Kiss the person you love best, without disclosing the secret. This would appear to involve an absolute impossibility. However, nothing is more easily accomplished, for the penitent has nothing more to do than to kiss all the ladies present, one after another, in which case he executes the order he has received, without betraying the party for whom he entertains a preference. Fishing for a kiss. To execute this, a small piece of barley sugar, Spanish licorice, a barberry drop, or any piece of confectionery, etc., must be tied to the end of a piece of thread, silk, or cotton. He is to suspend this line, thus baited, to the end of a twig, a pen, or something to imitate a fishing rod. Then, approaching the lady allotted for his prey, he must suspend the bait near her lips. She, having once taken it into her mouth, is constrained not to let it go, under the penalty of paying a forfeit. "I have hooked her, a famous fish. What if it should prove a mermaid? Oh, how gloriously she nibbles! I must take care not to lose her, as I am an old sportsman. I know there's nothing to be done with such fish, except by playing them well." During this speech, he detaches his end of the line, and, putting it into his mouth, gradually walks up to the lady, observing to draw the thread into his mouth as he advances. The consequence will be that his lips will be finally brought in contact with those of the lady, who will thus get kissed. Kissing goes by favor. The penitent is put into a corner, as a prisoner, with a screen or chair before him. He begins to lament and cry, "Alas, alas!" One of the party, "Alas? What do you want with alas?" Penitent, "By fate from liberty debarred, behold me caged, dear miss, and here I am condemned to stay, till let out by a kiss." Kissing goes by chance, or marriage is all a lottery. Take the honors of 2 or 3 packs of cards, according to the number of persons present. Separate the kings and knaves to be dealt to the men, the queens and aces to be dealt for the ladies. To each of these parcels may be added a sufficient number of other cards, to deal 1 for each person. The penitent shuffles the ladies' pack, and then, beginning at the top of the room, presents the cards for the lady to draw 1, which must be done in rotation until each has taken 1. The men must then each draw 1 from their pack, in like manner. When all the cards are distributed, the penitent, going into the middle of the room, calls for the Queen of Hearts. On her stepping out, he takes her by the hand and calls for the King of Hearts. Standing between them, he joins their hands, saying, "Happy pair, 'tis fate's decree that you tonight shall married be." He then proceeds in like manner with all the rest. Observe one thing. If there are several sets of honors used, it will then be necessary to mark a figure on each card with a pencil. King of Hearts 1, 2, 3, etc., that they may be paired with the corresponding numbers of queens. The same thing, however, need not be done with the knaves and aces. Should the party not consist of more than 18 persons, the honors of 1 pack will suffice. The kings must all kiss their queen's hands, saying, "Mr. Penitent, I thank you for my bride." He replies, "Nay, your majesty must thank Dame Fortune, for she made the match. I am glad you are pleased with your lot, and hope you'll have no cause to repent your bargain." Those who have drawn the knaves, stepping up to the penitent, shake hands with him, one after another, saying, "Take this for having indulged me with the luxury of continuing a bachelor." Those who have drawn the aces cry, "Take this for having doomed me to die an old maid," and each bestows on the penitent a blow with her fan, or a box of the ear, which provokes much merriment at the penitent's expense. There is scope for drollery, as the bachelors may make their observations when they produce their cards, as, for instance, Knave of Clubs. "Well, I am glad to find the staff of power is still left in my possession." for I dreaded lest fortune should have sent me a partner who would have snatched it from my hand to lay it about my shoulders. Knave of diamonds. Well, after all my brilliant freaks in the diamond button line, I find fortune is determined not to enrich my collection of gems with that jewel called a wife. Solomon says a good woman is better than rubies. I know which of the two I would rather have. Knave of hearts. I never knew fortune act so wisely. People say she is blind, but in my case she has shown the clearest discernment. For if there is a man in the world who can dispense with marriage, it most assuredly must be the knave of hearts. Knave of spades. With a spade in his hand, a single man may taste true happiness, while cultivating his garden. But if fortune bestows a wife, the sooner he hangs himself on one of his apple trees, the better. The old maids have an equal scope for venting spleen. Ace of clubs. This club could not be better bestowed than in drubbing that spiteful hussy, Madam Fortune, and as for the men, I could cudgel every booby of them, for their want of taste, to let Miss Barbara Crabtree wither thus disconsolately single. Oh, shame, shame, shame! Clubbing penitent with a fan. Ace of diamonds. I thought the display of the valuable diamond ring I wear would have induced someone to have asked for my hand long ago. As for you, sir, to the penitent, I'll let you have it without your going to the trouble of formally demanding it. Boxes his ears. Ace of hearts. I, who am all heart, to die single. How could you have the heart to deal thus with me, thou vile footman of fortune, thou valet of destiny? Did not the fates inform you I was doomed to box your ears? Suits the action to the word. Ace of spades. I am so mortified I could dig a hole with my spade to hide my head in. But first, let me dig out your eyes, sirrah. I'll make you as blind as Cupid, your master, and fortune your mistress. Flies at the penitent and attacks him with tooth and nail. Kissing by the L. The penitent, being ordered to give a certain lady so many ells of kissing, executes it in the following manner. He provides a piece of twine or ribbon, which measures exactly an ell. One end of this is taken between the finger and thumb of the lady's right hand, and the other is held by the teeth. Kissing first her hand, so he passes his lips from that all along the ribbon, until he finishes by kissing her cheek, unless she cries, honest measure, honest measure. Then he must only kiss her cheek, but if in crying honest measure she lets go from her mouth the end of the measure, she must change places with the penitent, and give the remaining number of ells to any gentleman he may nominate, not forgetting himself, if the lady is an agreeable customer.